Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour on India's Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi leads the nation in celebrating the 78th Independence Day from the historic Red Fort, reiterates commitment to make India a developed nation by 2047. The PM exhorts state governments to ensure speedy investigation in cases of heinous crime against women, says the drive against corruption will go on unabated. Prime Minister Modi makes a strong pitch for a secular civil code, also urges all political parties to agree to the idea of one nation, one election. From land to air to sea, India celebrates the spirit of patriotism and pride in the nation's achievements on its 78th Independence Day. And leaders from across the world extend their greetings on the occasion of India's Independence Day, laud bilateral ties with the country as well. Well, first up, it's India's 78th Independence Day, and on the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi unfurled the national flag at the Red Fort. He, in fact, hoisted it in Delhi for the 11th consecutive time. Following the unfurling of the tricolour, you can see the pictures of the unfurling right now, the hoisting of the flag right now. The Prime Minister took a salute from Rashtriya Punjab, from Punjab Regiment Military Band as well, and the Prime Minister also inspected the Guard of Honour, which consisted of 1 officer and 24 personnel each from the Army, Air Force and the Delhi Police.
पुलिस तबादगार आपके निरीक्षण के लिए तैयार है श्रीमान।
And thereafter, addressing the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister Modi recalled the sacrifices made by the people of the nation.
आज जो महानुभाव राष्ट्र रक्षा के लिए और राष्ट्र निर्माण के लिए पूरी लगन से, पूरी प्रतिबद्धता के साथ देश की रक्षा भी कर रहे हैं, देश को नई ऊंचाई पर ले जाने का प्रयास भी कर रहे हैं। चाहे वो हमारा किसान हो, हमारा जवान हो, हमारे नौजवानों का हौसला हो, हमारी माताओं बहनों का योगदान हो, दलित हो, पीड़ित हो, शोषित हो, वंचित हो, अभावों के बीच भी स्वतंत्रता के प्रति उसकी निष्ठा, लोकतंत्र के प्रति उसकी श्रद्धा, ये पूरे विश्व के लिए एक प्रेरक घटना है। मैं आज ऐसे सभी को आदरपूर्वक नमन करता हूं।
The Prime Minister expressed sympathies for the families of those affected by natural disasters.
इस वर्ष और पिछले कुछ वर्षों से प्राकृतिक आपदा के कारण हम सबकी चिंता बढ़ती चली जा रही है। प्राकृतिक आपदा में अनेक लोगों ने अपने परिवारजन खोए हैं, संपत्ति खोई है, राष्ट्र ने भी पारावार नुकसान भोगा है। मैं आज उन सब के प्रति अपनी संवेदना व्यक्त करता हूं और मैं उन्हें विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि यह देश इस संकट की घड़ी में उन सब के साथ खड़ा है।
Prime Minister Modi also said that we carry the blood of 40 crore people in our veins who had uprooted colonial rule from India.
गुलामी का इतना लंबा कालखंड, जुल्मी शासक, अपरंपार यातनाएं, सामान्य से सामान्य मानवीयों का विश्वास तोड़ने की हर तरकीब है। उसके बावजूद भी उस समय की जनसंख्या के हिसाब से करीब 40 करोड़ देशवासी आजादी के पूर्व 40 करोड़ देशवासियों ने वो जज्बा दिखाया, वो सामर्थ्य दिखाया, वो एक सपना लेकर के चले, एक संकल्प लेकर के चलते रहे, जूझते रहे। एक ही स्वर था, वंदे मातरम। एक ही सपना था, भारत की आजादी का। 40 करोड़ देशवासियों ने, और हमें गर्व है कि हमारी रगों में उन्हीं का खून है। वो हमारे पूर्वज थे। सिर्फ 40 करोड़ लोगों ने दुनिया की महासत्ता को उखाड़ करके फेंक दिया था, गुलामी की जंजीरों को तोड़ दिया था।
Further, Prime Minister Modi said that even after independence, an atmosphere of status quo persisted in the country for decades. He said that it is his government that implemented big reforms to change the lives of people and fill people with confidence.
हम ये न भूले कि देश उस परिस्थितियों से भी दशकों तक भी आजादी के बाद समय बिताया है, जब होती है, चलती है, अरे यार ये तो चलेगा, अरे हमें क्या मेहनत करने की जरूरत है, अरे मामला है अगली पीढ़ी दिखेगी, अरे हमको मौका मिला है यार मौज कर लो, आगे वाला आगे का जाने, हमें क्या करना है, हम अपना समय निकाल दें, अरे नया करने जाओगे कोई बवाल उठ जाए। पता नहीं क्यों देश में स्टेटस को का माहौल बन गया था, जो है उसी से गुजारा कर लो, यही का माहौल बन गया था। और लोग तो कहते हैं अरे भाई छोड़ो अब कुछ होने वाला नहीं है, चलो, ऐसा ही मन बन गया था। हमें इस मानसिकता को तोड़ना था, हमें विश्वास से भरना था। कई लोग तो कहते थे अरे भाई अगली पीढ़ी के लिए काम हम अभी से क्यों करें, हम तो आज का देखें। लेकिन देश का सामान्य नागरिक ये नहीं चाहता था, वो बदलाव के इंतजार में था, वो बदलाव चाहता था, उसकी ललक थी, लेकिन उसके सपनों को किसी ने तवज्जो नहीं दी, उसकी आशा आकांक्षाओं को अपेक्षाओं को तवज्जो नहीं दी गई, और उसके कारण वो मुसीबतों को झेलते हुए गुजारा करता रहा।
He also assured that the government's commitment to reforms remains unshakable. He reiterated that the government has a blueprint for India's growth.
गरीब हो, मिडिल क्लास हो, हमारे वंचित लोग हो, हमारी बढ़ती जाती शहरी आबादी हो, हमारे नौजवानों के सपने हो, संकल्प हो, आकांक्षाएं हो, उनके जीवन में बदलाव लाने के लिए रिफॉर्म का मार्ग हमने चुना। और मैं देशवासियों को विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूं, रिफॉर्म के प्रति हमारी जो प्रतिबद्धता है वो पिंक पेपर के एडिटोरियल के लिए सीमित नहीं है। हमारे रिफॉर्म्स की ये प्रतिबद्धता है, वो 4 दिन की वाहवाही के लिए नहीं है। हमारी रिफॉर्म्स की प्रक्रिया किसी मजबूरी में नहीं है, देश को मजबूती देने के इरादे से है। और इसलिए मैं आज कह सकता हूं रिफॉर्म का हमारा मार्ग एक प्रकार से ग्रोथ की ब्लूप्रिंट बनी हुई है। ये हमारा रिफॉर्म, ये ग्रोथ, ये बदलाव, ये सिर्फ डिबेट क्लब के लिए, इंटेलेक्चुअल सोसाइटी के लिए, एक्सपर्ट लोगों के लिए सिर्फ चर्चा का विषय नहीं है। साथियों, हमने राजनीतिक मजबूरी के कारण नहीं किया है। हम जो कुछ भी कर रहे हैं वो राजनीति का भागा गुणा करके नहीं सोचते हैं। हमारा एक ही संकल्प होता है, नेशन फर्स्ट, नेशन फर्स्ट, राष्ट्रहित सुप्रीम। ये मेरा भारत महान बने, इसी संकल्प को लेकर के हम कदम उठाते हैं।
And Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the tremendous progress made in India's infrastructure over the past decade.
पिछले एक दशक में अभूतपूर्व इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का विकास हुआ है। रेल हो, रोड हो, एयरपोर्ट हो, पोर्ट हो, ब्रॉडबैंड कनेक्टिविटी हो, गांव-गांव नए स्कूल बनाने की बात हो, जंगलों में स्कूल बनाने की बात हो, दूर सुदूर इलाकों में अस्पताल बनाने की बात हो, आरोग्य मंदिर बनाने की बात हो, मेडिकल कॉलेजों का काम हो, आयुष्मान आरोग्य मंदिरों का निर्माण चलता हो, 60,000 से ज्यादा अमृत सरोवर बने हो, 2 लाख पंचायतों तक ऑप्टिकल फाइबर नेटवर्क पहुंचा हो, नहरों का एक बहुत बड़ा जाल बिछाया जा रहा हो, 4 करोड़ पक्के घर बनना, गरीबों को एक नया आश्रय मिलना, 3 करोड़ नए घर बनाने के संकल्प के साथ आगे बढ़ने की हमारी कोशिश हो। हमारा पूर्वी भारत, नॉर्थ ईस्ट, उसका इलाका आज इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए जाने जाना लगा है। और हमने ये जो कायाकल्प किया है, उसका सबसे बड़ा लाभ समाज के उन वर्गों तक हम पहुंचे हैं जो ग्रामीण सड़कें वहां बनी है जिनकी तरफ कोई देखता नहीं था, जिस इलाकों को नहीं देखता था, जिन गांवों को नहीं देखता था। दलित हो, पीड़ित हो, शोषित हो, वंचित हो, पिछड़े हो, आदिवासी हो, जंगल में रहने वाले हो, दूर सुदूर पहाड़ों में रहने वाले हो, सीमावर्ती स्थान पर रहने वाले हो, हमने उनकी आवश्यकता की पूर्ति की है। हमारे मछुआरे भाई बहनों की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करना, हमारे पशुपालकों के जीवन को बदलना, एक प्रकार से सर्वांगीण विकास का प्रयास हमारी नीतियों में रहा, हमारी नीयत में रहा है, हमारे रिफॉर्म में रहा है, हमारे कार्यक्रमों में रहा है, हमारी कार्यशैली में रहा है।
And earlier, before reaching the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister Modi paid floral tributes to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat on India's 78th Independence Day. So let's talk about the significance of the occasion, 78th Independence Day for India, and the things that the Prime Minister stressed on when he made that speech, his 11th from the ramparts of the Red Fort in succession since 2014. We have with us in our studio, so gracious of them to continue with us after being with us through the speech of the Prime Minister, Aditi Tandon, senior journalist, and Dr. Hiraman Tiwari. He's a professor at the Indian Culture and of Indian Culture and History at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Good morning again and happy Independence Day. Aditi, if I could ask you first, on the previous 10 occasions, the Prime Minister had used this occasion to make big ticket announcements, be it Swachh Bharat or even the mission to get potable water to homes, or earlier, if you go back again, Jan Dhan Yojana, the microcredit scheme that the government came up with. Numerous announcements have been made. What to you stood out in that context in this particular speech on the 11th occasion that he gave the speech?
See, if you talk to me or ask me what is the biggest concrete takeaway in terms of delivery, he has promised to create 75,000 new MBBS seats over a period of next 5 years. This, he said, is important because at present about 25,000 Indian students are going abroad annually in order to study medicine. And we have seen, Gautam, how the Indian students have been caught in war-like situations in Ukraine. There were so many medical students that had to be rescued at the height of the war. You remember when India intervened with the Russian
Even more
president.
recently, although it was not a war in Bangladesh as well.
And then, you know, after this complete collapse of law and order and the civil infrastructure in Ukraine, a lot of Indian students have had to go elsewhere, you know, across East European countries, and it's a very expensive proposition and they're having a very hard time. So announcement of this new seats is significant. Also, the second significant takeaway for me is in terms of concrete takeaway, he is now saying, see, when you say concrete takeaways over the past few years, what also stands out in today's speeches, he is emphasizing continuity of reforms. See, continuity has been the hallmark of Prime Minister Modi's third term. You've seen almost cabinet ministers have been repeated. You've seen most top bureaucrats were retained. Only now, you know, the changes are happening. Cabinet secretary is going.
That's because people are superannuating.
And in major important positions, NSA continues. Ajit Doval continues in his post. You know, so continuity is the hallmark. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha continues. So that same hallmark he brings to his Independence Day speech, where the big takeaway is the MBBS seat thing. And then the rest of the speech is an emphasis on the promises that have been made earlier and a firm commitment that we are poised to walk the path of reform, no matter what the personal or the political cost of it. The second big takeaway for me would be, you know, when he says that we have to make India the global industrial manufacturing hub, because right now we are competing with China in that space, and this particular, also we have brought in a lot of reforms in order to open up the artificial intelligence and the semiconductor market. Semiconductor again was a highlight in Prime Minister's speech, where he says that India will be the hub of chip manufacturing in the future. So in all these announcements, he is actually, you know, he's actually building India up as a global power. That is the larger part of the BJP's vision towards a Viksit Bharat, and also a continued reduction in reliance on imports, where he also mentions defense production primarily. So these are the big takeaways. I think continuity of past announcements, and one big ticket announcement on the medical front coming on the close on the heels of this very you know, ugly controversy around paper leaks.
I'll come to you, Dr. Tiwari, but for the moment, let me also bring in my colleague Dibyendu Mondal joining us from the Red Fort now, where we've just had the Prime Minister deliver his 11th speech as the nation's executive head and lay out the path for the nation towards 2047 of a developed India. Dibyendu, if I could just ask you, in terms of how the day has gone so far, there was some kind of apprehension that the weather might play spoil sport, the rain might get in the way, but it seems that everything has gone smoothly, and the PM has delivered another speech that is rousing for the entire nation, very, very motivating, because it has that vision that takes India towards that well, really, really ambitious goal of becoming a developed country by 2047.
Well, Gautam, that's right. You know, wishing you as well as all our viewers a very happy Independence Day.
Thank you. You too.
But, you know, the Prime Minister's speech was almost 100-minute long speech, and we have seen, you know, in the past as well, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks from the ramparts of the Red Fort on the occasion of the Independence Day, his speeches are generally between 90 to 100 minutes. And this time also, it was almost about 97 to 98 minutes long speech. So, of course, you know, many things he touched upon. He also talked about, you know, how his government has been working for the benefit and the welfare of the country, and how the next 5 years, or in fact till 2047, the path that India will be taking for making itself as a developed nation by 2047. But coming to your question, Gautam, well, you know, in the initial hours and in the early morning, we had some slight drizzles, but also there was some slight drizzle when the Prime Minister was arriving at the Red Fort. But after which, you know, the weather opened up and it became quite sunny. And you know, despite that, we were very close to where all the ministers were sitting. So even the rain, you know, did not dampen you know, the enthusiasm of the ministers, the audiences, the students, the hundreds of students that had come to listen to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech. After the speech, he went into the enclosure of the NCC cadets and the students and met them. This is what he does every year during Independence Day. This is what students from across different parts of the country that comes to Delhi to listen to the Prime Minister awaits keenly, to meet him on this occasion of Independence Day. So, of course, a lot of enthusiasm here at Red Fort was witnessed when the Prime Minister was delivering his speech, as well as when he walked down the ramparts of the Red Fort and went into the enclosures where students as well as invitees were sitting down and interacted with them. So, of course, it was an interesting moment to see the Prime Minister walk down the Red Fort, interact with the people and the invitees who were here at the Red Fort. But having said this, Gautam, the focus will, of course, be on the speech, because it is a very, very important speech that the Prime Minister makes from the Red Fort on the occasion of the Independence Day. It lays out the roadmap of the government and the vision of the government. So, of course, a lot of analysis will be done on what the speech was of the Prime Minister from the Red Fort on the 78th Independence Day. Gautam.
Right, and Bendu, of course, there is always a lookout or an eye out for the kind of people who also come for this Independence Day celebration. More than 6,000 invites, I believe, were given out. But I think the biggest moment was when Prime Minister Modi mentioned and then acknowledged and congratulated India's Olympians who won those medals, the 6 medals at the Olympic Games in Paris. But let me bring in Professor Hiraman Tiwari now. Dr. Tiwari, what do you make of what the Prime Minister had to say on this occasion, the 78th Independence Day, in terms of the kind of path that has been laid out for the nation as far as the goal of becoming a developed nation is concerned by 2047?
Gautam, first of all, warmest greetings to you on our 78th Independence Day. But as you said, the path for the nation, path that he has suggested, charted out, and that is nothing but reform, reform, reform. If you forgive me, I would use an ancient saying, which is Sarve Gunaha Kanchana Mashrayante. All the qualities reside in money, in gold, in prosperity. And if the country is prosperous, has a lot of money, and for that, whatever is required. So therefore, as Aditi, our colleague here, has been saying right from the beginning, that there is no let up in reform, but in any case, what happens is that there are 2 or 3 things. We need to look at his, read his and hear his speech. His syllables are important. He says things subtly and in a nuanced manner. He says, for example, earlier, until now or until 10 years ago, the government expected people to come to it and beg the government, do this for us, do this for us. Now it is our job. It has been reversed completely, that the government needs to go to the people and find out what they needed. And it is in this context that... So
it's in tune with the kind of thing that he said in his first speech when in 2014 when he called himself Pradhan Sevak.
Absolutely. So in that sense, what Aditi was earlier talking about, whether it is 75,000 more seats, which is 15,000 seats per year, if you calculate it in 5 years. It's a massive number. She mentioned Ukraine, Europe and Russia and many other countries where students have to go. If the seats are available, we have skill, and that not only the seats for the students, but also enriching and empowering the country in health sector. Infrastructure is the big ticket thing for this government and for him. And therefore, he says that the process of reform is not to receive praise, accolades from people, but it is a commitment. It is what he calls a sankalp. And that commitment for which he appears obsessed in his speech, in his work, and he says no matter what. He also wants to suggest through all these announcements and this speech, that there might be a little dip in his party's seat in the government, but there is no difference in his style of functioning. He will continue to do what he has been doing for 10 years. And therefore, the only cry, if we said before the independence that this country, 40 crore people had, was Vande Mataram. Today, the only cry is that 24/7 you work towards 2047 to make India, to make this country a developed nation. And that will not happen unless the reforms happen, unless the research and development improves in this country, and we walk along with the powerful and most prosperous nations side to side in terms of the economic wealth and human resource, knowledge, and the make in India should also become something you design in India. So it will ease the making India, as you said, ease of living
Yes.
will become easier and better if we reform, if we bring in money, if we develop
Yes, the other thing that
infrastructure.
stood out to me was the kind of hub, a global hub that he wants to make India in number of fields, be it investment, be it skilling, be it semiconductors, be it AI, and there are others as well. And these are not announcements that have been made this time around, Aditi, because these are things that have already been initiated, and it's like reminding the nation that we're still working on this. We have to make it happen, isn't it?
Right. I particularly was impressed by the way Prime Minister was saying that Indians should not just play, they should also lead the gaming market in terms
Correct.
of production of, new games. And as you said, making India a global manufacturing hub across sectors. We have already done very well with mobile phone exports. We are already, I think, the second largest manufacturer right now. And across automobile sector, we are gaining ground. Defense production, we are steadily reducing our reliance on imports. Then you come to the AI and the semiconductor, we just spoke about it. Also, you see, what we
And there's
need
a
to
mission mode approach to all these, isn't it?
all these,
everything
yeah.
is, and there's budgetary allocation for it
like
as
you
well.
said, everything
The
is in
PLI
place.
schemes, it's already there, and there's going to be enhancement.
Yeah.
It seems that's been indicated as well, although it's not been spelled out in the speech.
He is repeatedly saying that there's complete political will behind the reform path. So nothing that happens around externally or internally is going to deter him from this path. Also, a very important takeaway which we need to discuss is his focus on skilling. You see, repeatedly, if you looked at Rashtrapati ji's speech yesterday, she made a very important comment. She said that the youth of India will drive the quarter of the century leading up to the centenary of India's independence. So this Amrit Kal, which this government calls, is to be driven by the youth. For them, there is a 5-scheme package announcement in the budget. And let me tell you, already the Corporate Affairs Ministry has held 2 rounds of talks with the industry, one with the PSUs, one with the private industry, on how to go forward with the PM internship scheme. The modalities of the scheme are ready. They are saying in 2 months the portal will be up and people will be able to apply and go for internship in top firms. Top firms meaning top 500 in terms of CSR spend in the last 3 years. That is the eligibility. And who are going to intern, Gautam? Not the IITians or the people passing out of AIMS, because they have a huge job market anyway. Low skilled people from smaller cities, semi-skilled youngsters, 21 to 24 years. Prime Minister's speech today made a mention of that. They are targeting how many? 1 crore youth annually. 500 companies, which means every company hires 4,000 youth every year.
That's a massive expansion.
And Gautam,
yes.
before you ask any question, just to add to what the brilliant point that Aditi ji is making, see, you said yourself also that the many things are being done. They have been initiated 10 years ago. But that is not enough for this country. He mentioned, so if somebody is looking for a big announcement in the speech, I personally feel that they are looking for something wrong there. Here he says that all the things, whether it is reaching water to the remotest areas, the schools, the hospitals, all the infrastructure which has been initiated, he knows and you know and I know that it has not reached everybody. So 2047 will be realized only with this, when this happens, and that in itself is a massive reform. There is no let up. They will continue to do that. Alongside what Aditi ji said, that you are talking to the big industrialists, whether it is semiconductors or any other reforms, the research or bringing in technology if it is required for developing the nation. So this commitment, this dream, this chasing his dream for 2047, developed country, developed India is something which is the biggest thing, and for which whatever is required in terms of increasing seats, giving 1 lakh, or even bringing in, making politicians, not only making things in India, 1 lakh people you need, he said, get me 1 lakh people from the grassroots who will replace the leaders, the administrators, and that means this is a kind of universal consensus, or he has been using that for his radio messages, Man Ki Baat, and on the speeches, that he requires, and he actually asks, demands, requests, suggestions from anybody. And many of the suggestions, as you can see, are
they're being
visible.
Incorporated.
Absolutely.
Whatever
So universal consensus.
he feels will contribute to the
So
development
it was
of the
in
nation
India's
is
motto
big
have
time.
been Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya. He is trying to turn into Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya. No longer Bahujana.
And Aditi, in terms of the reforms path, again, we've seen a lot of initiatives in the last 10 years. A lot of sectors have been opened up for both the private sector and foreign direct investment as well. I mean, space is a big example of that. Other sectors as well. Now, what else is required to be done on the reforms path, really, to take this journey forward? Because 2047, we want to become a developed nation where this development path that we have taken 8% plus perhaps needs to be 10% plus in terms of the GDP growth.
See, what I feel, frankly, if you ask my opinion, what needs to be done is, apart from what is being done already, plus a political push to the reform path, political reforms, governance reforms, both. What needs to be done, Gautam, is more stress on the rural heartland of the country. Because we have seen in the recent election that the BJP did lose, 1/3 of its rural seats, and that is something the Prime Minister has tried to address very subtly in his Independence Day address today, when he says that we will continue to support the poor. We will ensure that there is saturation of all government schemes across sectors, whether it is drinking water, whether it is, gas connections, whether it is rural or urban housing. And he says also that saturation, 100% delivery of government schemes is the best form of social justice, because it's non-discriminatory. It is religion agnostic. Everybody is getting that. It is not caste driven, it is not religion driven. That is a very important point which he makes to address the rural heartland. Secondly, he also says in his speech that we have to continue to revive the Nalanda spirit of the country. What has happened over the past, did you not see how he mentioned that as Indians, are we taking enough pride in being Indians? He mentioned the Indian Standard Time. He says we mock ourselves. Why do we do that? Because we lack self-respect for ourselves as a nation.
He talked about the role of languages, indigenous languages
Yes.
as well in education, and how there should be a sense of pride in that and take that forward, continuity learning, because that will ensure that the levels of skilling that is required in our youth, that is provided and that is implanted in their own language, and that will make them more effective.
So you see, they have set up a committee in the Ministry of Education to actually create curriculum in all these mother tongues. So they have provided for mother tongue instruction in the National Education Policy, and they are now following it up with a committee. Already Madhya Pradesh government has produced curriculum for medical education in all languages, and also the curriculum for law is being currently debated with the Law Council of India. So all these reforms are simultaneously going on, and let's not forget that the Chief Justice of India himself, CJI D.Y. Chandrachud, has repeatedly stressed the importance of languages, and he has said that all major judgments should be translated in all Indian languages.
Are being done also.
Because that will democratize the justice system. So you see, languages, the pitch for language, opening up language in curriculum is not a small thing to do. It will democratize the education system. It will democratize the justice delivery system. If you and I know, that we have access to all tools that we need in all languages that we understand, we can access justice better, we can access education better.
And Aditi and Gautam, one subtle thing alongside what you both are talking about, the language, this also gives a subtle message to the diversity in our country, where certain times political issues are raised on the basis of language. So if you make languages, your own languages, this somehow dilutes the whole tension that might sometimes be exploited by people, political parties. I think this is multiple messages. So his messages are very, very subtle and multifarious.
That's very well said.
And Dr. Tiwari, when we talk about reforms, the common understanding is economic reforms.
Yes.
What about social reforms? There is still a lot of social reform required, and that is also something that the PM has pressed on.
Brilliantly said. Aditi began before you, the other colleagues were there, that this idea of saying that we should have not only people giving us suggestions, but the uniform civil code. Uniformity has been
talked about
replaced
the
by
secular civil
mentioned
code,
it.
which
So,
can be sort
that
of
obviously
interchangeable with
simply means
uniform.
that you are bringing everybody in the focus. And as I said earlier also, the reform may have begun 10 years ago, but the country is vast, the problems are vast, so there are multiple level the government has to work. It has to work at the highest level in international economic fora and industries, but also at a grassroots level, as she said, that the rural level where the reform has been initiated. In some places it has reached, but there is a large swathe of the country where the fruits of reform need to reach. And most importantly, you and I, when we travel today in the country, we can feel the difference in the infrastructure, say for travel, whether it is by road, by train, by air, all these things. And the fruit of that must reach to the last person in a remotest part of the country, which in fact is a big mission to be achieved well before 2047, because 2047, earlier, it was said that 24/7 for 2047 is a wonderful slogan. But once you reach that, once you have this saturation point, that all the reforms, all the requirements, all the needs that the people do need are met, then only can you think of something which is called a developed nation. So given the civilization, Nalanda model, Nalanda is not just an educational institution. It brings in so many things. Do you know that in Nalanda, the class sizes were 3,000 to 4,000 people in one hall? It's not a joke. That was envisioned at that time. And he said we need to bring back. So there is a balance that is required in the modern and future world, and as well as what kind of heritage we have had. And therefore, the celebration of the past is also celebration of ourselves. As she said, that we need to take pride in everything. We need to take pride in the language. You and I may talk also English, but Bengali, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, whatever the language, we take equal pride in it, because each language is equally beautiful and rich with literature and with senses.
Okay, we'll continue this, but let me bring in my colleague Akshay Dongre. He's at the National War Memorial, which is again a big part of the nation's psyche when we talk about how the nation has beaten back aggressors as well in the course of all these years, the 77 years that the nation has been independent. And what role is it playing in the celebration today is what we'll find out from Akshay Dongre. Akshay, if you can hear me, happy Independence Day to you. And tell us about what is happening there today at the National War Memorial.
Well, very happy New Year, very happy Independence Day to you as well, and to all of our viewers, Gautam. And in fact, when we talk about this place where we are right now, this a beautiful memorial that has been built by the government, and in fact, what it represents the sacrifices that have been made over the course of 77 years. It represents the dignity of a nation. And when we talk about independence, we talk about republic, we talk about the constitution. The constitution talks about all the rights, in a way that the rights are there to give dignity to the individual, to dignity to the citizens, to have a life with dignity and with rights. And this is exactly what the War Memorial gives to each and every Indian, a dignity, in a way to look back, the journey that has been made by the country in the course of 77 years, the kind of problems that it has had, the kind of aggressor that it has beaten. It's not just a story of a country that has developed over a period of 77 years. It is a story of a country that has fought so many challenges that is unprecedented as far as a country's development is concerned, given the fact that the state that the Britishers left India in was abysmal. The economy was in shatters, and now India is a bigger economy than the former colonizer, and that could not be possible without the sacrifices that have been made. by the armed forces of the country, by the police officials, by the paramilitary officials, by the Central Armed Police, and most importantly, the armed forces, including the Air Force, Navy, and the Indian Army. And here, where we are right now, the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, will be arriving here. She will be paying her homage and tribute to all the soldiers who have fallen for their who have fallen in line of duty, who have sacrificed their life. And this is the event that has been planned at the National War Memorial, a symbol of India's hope, a symbol of the sacrifices that have been made to make India what it is today. Back to you.
Yes, certainly on a day like this, we cannot but remember those who have made the supreme sacrifice for the nation to keep the independence that it won in a very hard-fought manner with a lot of sacrifice back in 1947, because we've had challenges in that regard as well later on through the decades, but every time these challenges have been thwarted. Thank you for joining us for the moment, Akshay Dongre from the National War Memorial. Now, if we talk further, Aditi, about the kind of things that the Prime Minister said, where more effort is required, not just from the people, but from different institutions, from the federal structure, the states as well, and different political parties. Where do you think he was indicating that everybody needs to pull together as well if we are to reach the kind of goals, to attain the kind of goals that have been set for the country?
See, the day Mr. Modi was re-elected leader of the NDA in the Central Hall of Parliament in Samvidhan Sadan, he made a very important comment that day. I still remember what he said. He said the interlinkage between the center and the states should be so strong that even air can't pass through it. So that was the indication he gave. He is making that same point today. There has been a recent tension between some states and the center with respect to devolution of finances, with respect to differences of opinion on the goods and services taxes, with respect to the extension of the powers of probe agencies to states. We all know that some of the opposition states have actually said that the CBI can't come in unless we allow them to come in. Yesterday, Mamata Banerjee was literally, her hand was forced by the Calcutta High Court to accept a CBI probe into that horrible Kolkata brutal gang rape. Anyway, that's besides the point. What the Prime Minister is saying is, Prime Minister has not said this for the first time, Gautam. It's also a reiteration of his earlier approach that cooperative federalism is the key, is the backbone of India's growth, and that this should ultimately become competitive federalism, where states compete with one another for not just resources from the center, but also for investments from abroad. Like he said today, that let every state, the Niti Aayog in its last meeting which Prime Minister chaired has said that every state should come out with a state investor index. You compete with one another. Karnataka is highest on investment or Maharashtra is.
He talked about land banks as well for investors to come in so that they can quickly set up whatever they need to set up and get things going.
Yeah, and not just that, he is, see, not only cooperative federalism is what the Prime Minister keeps urging upon, he also keeps calling for people's participation in the overall growth story of the country. Jan Bhagidari is a very important thread of NDA dispensations governance structure. Swachhata Abhiyan, or you look at the Kashi Tamil Samagam, where you have, Tamil Nadu and North Indian spiritual city of Kashi hosting Tamil Nadu saints and seers over a month, which is also a brainchild of Prime Minister because Kashi is his Lok Sabha segment. So, involvement of people in a large segment of governance reforms and the success of the country, because it's not one person's job, it's not Mr. Modi alone that can deliver the goal of Viksit Bharat, it's all of us.
And this one nation, one election, which has been talked about for quite some time, Dr. Tiwari, it's part of this exercise because again he made a pitch for that today, saying that election after election gets in the way of India's development, it slows it down. It's a drag.
Yes.
So, but there is lack of consensus on it.
So absolutely, and therefore, although it is 6, 7, 8 years old refrain, and he is working towards this, trying to work. Commission has been set up. Report is already ready. That is one thing. But what earlier was mentioned by Aditi, how actually to bring everybody on board. So even today he mentioned, as he said earlier in the parliament, that not even the air should be allowed to pass between the governance consonance between state and the center. Today he added another dimension to it, is that at the local governments and the central government, there should not be any gap. And that cannot be possible without the state governments coming on board and working with the center and the vice versa. And so there is a very strong pitch and effort to bring, despite the political differences, ideological differences, differences on devolution of finances, the taxes, GST, which state earns how much, these debates will continue. But said, whatever the reforms that are required for the country, for an overall development from the grassroots level, right up to the top, to the first level cities, first tier cities, there should be a complete consonance, consensus and agreement. And that if he has opened up his government for negotiating and trying to talk to people, to the state governments, which are not his government. And he mentioned whether it is the government which is there in the center of that party in the state or not, but we must work together. And for that, if you have one nation, one election, as I said earlier, it will not only save money, but time and also a lot of anxiety and work that goes into this mega country that we have for elections, the largest democracy.
Certainly. Let's also bring our viewers what else has been happening around the country on this great occasion of the nation's 78th Independence Day. Well, Lal Chowk in Jammu and Kashmir, Srinagar, has been celebrating the Independence Day, marking a significant moment in the region's history. The iconic square, often seen as a symbol of political and cultural significance, has been adorned with vibrant tricolour decorations of flags and lights, creating a festive atmosphere. As a fervour of pride and devotion echoes through the streets of Jammu and Kashmir's capital Srinagar, Lal Chowk shines as a beacon of hope and unity for all. And the Border Security Force of India has conducted a Tiranga rally in Poonch. BSF personnel participated in this rally with the Indian national flag and marched through the seats of Uchar Mendar. The rally was a display of national pride, fostering a spirit of unity and strength in the region. And the Indo-Tibetan Border Police personnel of the Northwest Frontier marked India's 78th Independence Day with a celebration that epitomizes resilience and patriotism in the challenging environment of Leh Ladakh, braving inhospitable terrain at over 14,000 feet with low oxygen levels. The ITBP mans the frontier that India has with China. Also, a group of scuba divers at Kavarati Island in Lakshadweep hoisted the national flags. You can see underwater. Another unforgettable moment on the occasion of India's 78th Independence Day. And renowned Indian sand artist Doordarshan Patnaik has created a stunning art form to celebrate India's 78th Independence Day, displayed on the golden sands of Puri beach in Odisha. The artwork features a majestic representation of the Indian tricolour, along with the iconic symbols such as the Ashok Chakra, doves representing peace and harmony. The Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain conducted a special Bhasma Aarti to mark the celebration of India's 78th Independence Day as well. The Bhasma Aarti on Independence Day was a moving tribute reflecting the unity and resilience of the nation. And we mentioned how messages are also coming in from leaders of different countries while lauding the ties between the two nations. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has extended greetings to India on the occasion of its 78th Independence Day. In a statement issued on Thursday, Blinken celebrated India's rich and diverse history while expressing optimism for US-India relations. He also emphasized the deep bond shared by India and the US, founded on a mutual commitment to democracy, freedom and human dignity. He also extended joyous Independence Day wishes to those celebrating in India, the US and globally through the Indian diaspora. And if we talk about the kind of relations that India has with different nations across the world, again the Prime Minister Aditi mentioned that how India is really developing its relations across the firmament, across ideologies as well in the world, and also then putting itself across as a leader of the Global South, a voice of the Global South, as well as pitching ideas that are being accepted and being taken forward at the global stage as well, such as the Solar Alliance.
Yeah, absolutely. Today also the Prime Minister said that India's growth story should not, warn or alert the global powers, because India is a land of Buddha. He said, "Ye Buddha ki dharti hai, yuddh hamari raah nahi hai." And this phrase that this is not the time for war is the formulation that went into the G20 draft when, obviously the US and other world powers wanted India to say something on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And this was a formulation acceptable to both sides. And India managed a consensus on this in G20, which was not possible in Bali earlier. So you see, that has happened. Just one thing that since we are celebrating our 78th Independence Day, and Prime Ministers repeatedly stressed the importance of national pride and Nalanda spirit, we should not today forget to mention what Macaulay did to our education system, and the famous Macaulay speech where he actually said, I managed to just copy paste it for just now, because I do want to read just one sentence where Macaulay says, I have travelled across the length and breadth of India and have not seen one person who is a beggar, one person who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this nation, such high moral values, people of such caliber that I do not think we would ever be able to conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And so I propose that we replace the old Indian ancient education system with English only when Indians think that English is good and greater than their own spiritual heritage will they lose their self-esteem, their native self-culture, and that is when India will become what we want it to become, a truly dominated nation.
Yes.
So now we understand the context of what...
Same Macaulay is also said, which is much more offensive to us, that the entire knowledge system and the books and scriptures are not of the country, this vast country, as he praised it, not even a single beggar, spiritually very strong, is not even worth of one shelf of a good English library. I may be wrong in my memory of the exact quotation. And before that, Macaulay, before that comes this, people celebrate James Mill, who wrote 3 volumes of Indian history. He said exactly similar things, that I have not been to India, I have not read any texts, I have not consulted any serious scholar, but I have met and talked to people who have been to India and who know India, on the basis of which I am writing this 3-volume history of India, where I can say that not even a one bookshelf in an English household can equal, or not, the entire text and knowledge system of India cannot equal even one bookshelf of an Englishman's household bookshelf.
Well, look at where they are now. We are progressing,
and therefore the Tiranga.
Colonial suppressors, we'll be talking about this further as well. But right now it's time to close the show and take things forward with what is happening on the ground as well, because we're not done with Independence Day celebrations. Things are just, taking their own course here, because the nation is celebrating in all corners, and we will be getting you all those updates later on as well. My colleague Shubhendu is here now, and he'll be taking over very soon. Thanks for watching this Independence Day special broadcast, and this will be continuing through the day. Thank you for joining us as well. Thank you.